Welcome everyone. I'd say it's wonderful to see you, but I actually can't see you because we're in webinar format. But thank you for joining us for what I'm sure will be an insightful session today. In case you missed the earlier session, my name's Jess Treisberg and I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow alumnus. I'm also a PhD researcher and an executive member of the Victorian Refugee Health Network. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I stand, the Wurundjeri and the Boon Wurrung people. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to acknowledge their continual connection to this country and that sovereignty was never ceded. I'd like to recognise the vast amount of work to be done to acknowledge injustices past and present and work towards a future of reconciliation. As I said before, we're in webinar mode, so you can see and hear us, as you've probably noticed. Hopefully you can see and hear us, but we can't see or hear you. But we would love to see your comments and we'd love to get your questions. We will have a Q&A session later. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A button and a chat button. And we'd love you to put your comments in there, put your questions in there throughout, and we'll relay them to the panelists during the Q&A session. So this session will run as follows. First of all, we have two very experienced peace practitioners and academics. Morgan Brigg, the Director of the UQ Rotary Peace Centre and Director of the Rotary Program for Indigenous Engagement and Associate Professor at University of Queensland. And Tanya Miletic, who's here with me, who's the Assistant Director of the University of Melbourne Initiative for Peace Building and faculty with the Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies in Cambodia and visiting academic with the Zhou Enlai School of Government at the University of Nang Khai. They will guide us through what peacemaking and peace building is, how we might understand it, and what our region's peace building landscape looks like. Following that, we have some special guests who are currently burning the midnight oil in Switzerland and Poland right now, where it's 3 a.m. We have Sibylle Ruprecht, who is a lecturer, trainer, certified coach, and a mentor at the Cherie Blair Foundation and founding member of the Rotary Club Geneva International, and Natalia Sineeva Pankowska, who is a Holocaust and Genocide scholar and educator, and Europe coordinator of the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association. They'll be joined by Walter Geiger, a retired ambassador and primary representative of Rotary International to the United Nations in Geneva. Walter, Sibylle and Natalia will share their experience as conveners of the Rotary Peace Project Incubator. Thank you so much to each of our panelists for being here with us. I feel like I should wait for your applause, but obviously on webinar mode I can't. So I'm just going to assume that you're clapping away at home. After all of that amazing input, we're going to come back to me. I'll give you a brief overview of a couple of local initiatives that are upcoming that you can get involved with, and then facilitate a Q&A session with our amazing panelists. So please do remember to put your questions into the Q&A function or the chat box. I'm super excited. I'm sure you are as well. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Morgan. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jess, and thanks for the invitation to be part of the session, and thanks to all of you who are joining today. I want to say a few things about how I conceive of peacemaking and peace building, and then turn to some thoughts on how Rotary and Rotarians, alumni and current peace fellows, along with our particular centre, can contribute to peace. So historically and traditionally, there was a tendency to think of peacemaking in terms of elite level contributions of external third parties to conflict situation, helping the conflict parties with resolving their disputes. And in terms of these third parties, you can think of UN special envoys, former UN secretary generals, or people such as former Algerian foreign minister Lakhdar Brahimi flying in at times of crisis to resolve issues or to negotiate overall peace deals. But the experience of practitioners and analysis by scholars over recent decades have led us, I think, to have quite a consensus about recognizing that managing conflict and resolving conflict is a far more complicated and multifaceted process. Some key points about this understanding. Peacemaking cannot be an elite level process only. It must include people from throughout society, including those who are often marginalized by elite politics and processes. Second, the peacemaking processes can't be wholly led or run by outsiders. They can be very useful, outsiders, but it's necessary to have buy-in and serious contributions from local communities. And third, peacemaking can't occur through the application of apparently reasonable and universal approaches. There's a need to engage with and draw upon local approaches to peace and conflict resolution. That's why we've seen in the field, among other phenomena, an evolution of language at the United Nations to include notions of building peace constituencies, of local engagement, and of notions such as sustainable peace. So these phenomena, of course, speak partly to the emergence of peace building. Agreements need to be mediated and struck and so on, and that's where peacemaking comes in. But in recent decades, we see recognition of the need for a much more broad-based societal, political, economic, educational, and other kinds of foundations for peace. So international agencies and donor partners can assist with this work, but truly sustainable work in these areas requires local involvement. One other important note, I think, about how we view peace and conflict and peace making is that from the perspective of locations such as Australia or Switzerland or other countries of the global north, there was, and perhaps still is, a tendency to see the challenges of conflict and peace as taking place elsewhere in exotic and challenged locations of the global south. But recent decades have changed this. 3 quick points on this. First, there's a realization that conflict dynamics are truly globalized. Various forms of terrorism, including right-wing terrorism, have shown us that. Second, most countries grapple with their own internal conflict challenges. And from where I sit, in Meanjin or Brisbane on the lands of the Jagera and Turrbal people, we deal with the challenge of Indigenous peoples and relationships with Indigenous peoples and First Nations. Third, governance and other mechanisms for dealing with conflict in the global north are not as robust or as advanced as sometimes thought. Consider the tensions and violence that we saw broadcast across the world around the Black Lives Matter issues in the United States and the recent United States election. So these developments, I think, necessarily shift how we understand peacemaking and peace building. But the really fascinating thing here is that places Rotary and Rotarians in an excellent position. And this turns me to the second part of what I want to say. Rotary clubs and Rotarians are embedded in and connected with communities and people. While I think it's fair to say that more needs to be done to link between clubs, current and alumni peace fellows and peace work, I think Rotarian inclinations towards community, towards service and fellowship are strongly connected to where the future of peace work needs to go. Some quick comments about what we might do in this area are informed by my role as director of the UQ Rotary Peace Centre. And these are mainly prospective ideas, and they include, because I sit in a university, ideas about how you might link in peace building researchers and peace and conflict resolution researchers, as well as peace building NGOs and others. Let me give you 2 quick examples of the types of possibilities that I see here, and then a little bit about one plan we have. First, I just want to refer to one of our current Rotary Peace Fellows, Maya Glassman. Maya did an internship with an Australian organisation called Australians for Native Title and Reconciliation. Now, this organisation is focused partly around advocating and supporting Indigenous people to be able to attend funerals, a basic everyday kind of human need. And what Maya has been doing with a local Rotary club in Brisbane is setting up links between that club and Rotarians so that the Rotary clubs can help advocate for and support for Indigenous people to participate in funerals when they're often not able to because of work or other commitments. So this kind of initiative, very local, very grassroots, is a way of building relationships that are often not at play, and in a sense, building up the cultural capital across sections of society, a very valuable peace building effort. The second example I refer to is a larger scale initiative, and again, initiated by a local Rotary Club. They've approached our university because they want to apply for the Rotary Programs of Scale grant to work in the area of water. And when the parts of our university that are very accomplished in working in water expertise and technical aspects of water contacted our centre, because we have a connection with Rotary. And when we designed our EOI, what we came up with was a focus on water sharing partnerships, which is design around policy around water, dealing with water challenges. And we immediately saw the people who work on, the engineers and others who work on water in our university, they and I immediately saw the very strong potential for involving Rotary Peace Fellows and Rotary Peace Fellow alumni, because when you engage in developing and designing water sharing partnerships, you're immediately dealing with diverse constituencies, you're dealing with questions of social equity and access, you're dealing with political conflicts around water. And so we designed an EOI that had the work of the Peace Centre and the Peace Fellows very closely integrated with our proposal, and that our proposal was successful, and we're now in the process of collaborating with that Rotary Club to submit the Program of Scale grant. And if we're successful, we see great potential for Rotary Peace Fellows and alumni to be involved in that, as I signaled before. And even if we're not successful, we'll pursue the initiative in some other way. So thinking about these kinds of opportunities for joining Peace Fellows, the university, Rotarians, one of the things we will be doing in June, just in a couple of months, is having our first meeting where we try to strategize ways of bringing together local peace building NGOs, Rotarians, Rotary Peace Fellows and Rotary Peace Fellow alumni. And we're going to experiment with using our centre as a kind of a hub for networking, concrete conflict resolution and peace building initiatives. And they may be very local, they may be based in the Brisbane region, but they may also extend regionally in an international sense. Our clubs work with countries such as Timor-Leste, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Nauru, Vanuatu, the countries of the Southwest Pacific. So we're going to explore these possibilities. We're not naive, we are excited about this possibility, but we're also cautious. And that's why I'm so glad to be on the panel with Walter and others who can speak to the European experience with this. But one thing we are quite certain of, or I am quite certain of, is that Rotary is really well placed to contribute to peacemaking and peace building in the revised way we think about these things. If we think about peacemaking in the ways we thought about it 30 years ago as predominantly an elite level process, we would miss so much of the potential and so much of the work that needs to be done in peacemaking and peace building. And if we make that mental shift, then to recognizing the need to involve communities at all levels, then we make the shift that's necessary to realize the possibilities that Rotary can really contribute in this area. So look, I know we're on a tight time frame here, and I believe I've kept to my allocated time. So great to be part of this panel with all of you. I'll leave my remarks there for now.
Thank you so much, Morgan. And I also join Jess in saying how wonderful it is to be with you, Walter, Sibylle and Natalia and Morgan. It's really an important conversation we've been wanting to have with you, but with our audience, because for a long time there's been different types of discussions about how we can really harness the wealth of experience that exists in our region and in our various contexts, both for us as Peace Fellow alumni, and over the decade or so of the program, there's now, you know, over 140 Peace Fellows that are based in Oceania at least. And in our district alone, we've had over 40 successful candidates who over the years have come back with their professional experience, engaging with Rotary in different ways and having both organic collaborations and to, in an ad hoc way, trying to think about how we strengthen the network, how we strengthen and professionalise our capacity to be mobilised around issues or themes, but also thinking more creatively about how best to really support peace building initiatives from wherever we're best placed to do so. So I join Morgan in my enthusiasm and curiosity to learn more from the incubator experience, because something we really want to do is our best and make sure that we're thinking really practically and pragmatically, but also creatively and aspirationally. So Morgan touched on some of the things that I would like to highlight too, that what distinguishes peace building, especially in the last couple of decades, inclusive of approaches to peacemaking and peace process support, is changes in how we think about who is best placed and how we're best placed to influence change. And in Australia, I think one of the problems we've really grappled with is that distinction that Morgan mentioned between when we think about international peace building or things elsewhere, rather than thinking about where we are and how we're connected and placed. And in Australia, it's so important that we really think deeply and engage meaningfully at this time, because there are opportunities to really rethink and engage differently in our Indigenous settler relationships, and Morgan spoke really importantly to that, but also the reality that most of us in Australia come from other countries as well. So my interest in conflict was because my father's country in the 90s was in conflict, and I didn't understand what was happening between the Croatian and Serbian communities I felt connected to in the Victorian Australian context. And that was the catalyst for 2 decades of being committed to supporting initiatives. And a large amount of time was in Southeast Asia in our region. So when I came back to Australia in 2012, like many alumni of the program who have these fluid bases and multiple dynamic connections to conflict contexts, whether it's very local or not, it was important to raise an understanding for our Rotarian friends and supporters, our own colleagues, about the different ways in which people are working to support change, and how that support looks different depending on who we are, whether we're Rotarians or practitioners or academics. And then the second aspect to that was thinking more about mechanisms to support that sort of meaningful engagement. And so this session, this idea of what we can do for peace, is really a question that we've been grappling with for a long time, thinking about, well, if we collaborate on particular issues, how is the best way to do that? For the alumni, there's been a lot of work done, and Natalia is an embodiment of that towards the Rotary Peace Fellow Alumni Association, trying to create regional coordination and build on that. And the incubator project, which will be talked about, is an example of how to move that into a new space. In our region, we've got a lot of incredible peace building work that's been done in the Pacific, in Southeast Asia, in Australia that largely gets unseen. There's a lot of work that's been done, and there are a lot of peace builders in our region, a lot of initiatives underway that would really benefit from different types of support. So we also want to hold in mind the very dynamic community approaches and initiatives that are underway, as well as all those individual Rotarians and clubs that have been really supportive of the Peace Fellowship program and their own interest in the types of initiatives that they could be involved in. From another perspective, it's really important to hold in mind in our region and in others that countries like Australia, the experience of diplomatic allocations, which is where our support to regional and international conflict prevention and peace building have been decimated over the past quarter century. There has been a reduction of over half of our diplomacy and aid allocations in Australia over the past quarter century. So in parallel to that, we also are trying to really enhance an understanding of the central role that diplomacy and aid also make in how Australia engages in the world and in the region. And that's also a reflection on centres like Morgan's at UQ, where there is a strong Masters in Conflict Resolution, but also the initiative that we launched yesterday at Melbourne University to really try to create these sorts of institutional homes to train peace builders in our region and to really provide conducive spaces where we can have better engagement and influence between researchers, policymakers, practitioners and the community. So I'd like to pretty much end there, because I'm hoping that by welcoming Sibylle, Walter and Natalia, we can pick back up on this question and really move it forward, because like Morgan, we've got some ideas about how we could do this, but we welcome the experience that can be shared from our European friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was suspecting it, but I wasn't so sure. Thank you very much for having me here this morning. Good morning to everybody in the space of Oceania. I'm very happy to be able to share with you what we have done for the Rotarian Peace Project Incubator. When we created the Swiss Action Group for Peace, one of the objectives was to create a forum of ideas where people can come together to talk about peace and hopefully make projects out of it. And of course, initially it looked very, very differently, and then COVID came and it all had to change. But before we actually could present the incubator in November, there was a lot of work which has been done. And at this point, I would like to pay tribute to Natalia and the Rotarian Peace Project, the Rotarian Peace Fellows. She is the leader of the European Association of Rotary Peace Fellows, and under her guidance the Peace Fellows have been very much engaged, and without them we would not have been able to do anything. And it was a wonderful collaboration between us. The Rotarian Peace Project Incubator was organized over a period of roughly 1 year, with a real peak in activities over the last 9 months prior to November 5th, where we presented the Rotarian Peace Project Incubator. The result of this incredible collaboration was 48 projects in 10 thematic areas and with 10 coordination teams. We had over 55 Rotary Peace Fellows, Rotarians, and Rotaractors working together throughout the whole period of time, organizing over 30 webinars on Zoom, planning the various sessions. Especially what they did, they discussed very precise projects. Why did we have 10 thematic areas? Is simply because we thought peace is not, as Morgan said, not just for some elite, and it's not just for conflict. Peace starts at home. And if you start to do your bit at home, and this is where Rotarians and Rotary clubs can come in so much. If you start to do your bit at home, there is a much bigger chance that we can live in a peaceful world. We have seen it with very many different conflicts, be it the conflicts, racial conflicts, be it even neighborhood conflicts, be it conflicts with more difficult zones where maybe the young ones have less hope. Be it conflict over water, as Morgan said, be it conflict over health. And we have seen that health is such an important issue during the COVID. And we have also seen that some people could access health care much easier than others. So it was an encompassing, that's why we had 10 themes and 55 people working on them with 30 preparatory webinars, which created 48 project next. We had in the end 220 registered for the presentation of the peace projects. Next. 6 hours of Zoom and 48 minutes. We produced a 45-minute film, which is on YouTube for the Geneva Peace Week. We have actually made a big effort, communication effort on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel where you can find films and register and all kinds of projects. All of this project next. So the 10 themes were using cultural resources for peace. And so you see really the variety. New technologies and peace, building trust in post-conflict communities, refugees, migrants and peace, gender equality as a force for peace, healthcare as an agent for peace, economic development and peace, peace through education, peace and climate change, and intergenerational peace building. Next. We have created a website, and all 48 projects can be found on the website, including the project forms. Projects were proposed to be for Rotary clubs from all over the world. We have projects in South America, we have projects in Africa, in Europe, we have projects in India, we have projects in other Asian countries. You find that we really didn't just work in our region, but we had peace fellows actually also from all over the world. And we saw the success and the the way, the attention it received from Rotary clubs and Rotarian and Rotary International. And we are actually very grateful for that, because we believe that if it can be replicated, if it can be done in other areas of the world, that would be great. So what? Yeah, it's okay. What is going to happen now? Now we've created the projects. That's wonderful. But that's these are only projects. A lot of them have already local Rotary clubs, because all of them have been planned in such a way that they could potentially apply for a global grant with the Rotary Foundation. We have still missing a lot of international Rotary partners, especially the international Rotary clubs, who can then partner with the local executing Rotary club, and thus ensure that the projects are realized. Because right now we have wonderful projects, but we need now to plan them. What can you do to help us planning? First of all, you can go onto our website, www.rppi.ch, and you can have a look at these projects. Maybe you would like to take on board as a Rotary club. I have a phantom printer which all of a sudden starts. I don't know whether you heard it. Maybe you would like to engage in an international project, a project which is dear to your heart, mother and health, or education, or domestic violence, or preserving rivers, anything you feel your heart is connected to. So don't hesitate to get engaged, because on all you find on the website actually for each project also the contact points of the Peace Fellows and the Rotarians and the executing bodies who are working on it. So don't hesitate to contact them, and if we can help, that would be wonderful. Now, we're really, really proud to have been pioneers in that respect and of the attention it draw. And now I had a Zoom meeting this week with the United States, who would like to plan a meeting. You can forward. We would like to plan an incubator as well. And if you would like to create an incubator, that would be, of course, wonderful. How can I say more? Actually, I only can say we have already the next incubator planned, because it shouldn't be a one-off. That was the idea from the beginning. This is not going to be once we have an incubator, have these projects, and then we never do it again. No, we do next. We be patient. We already planned the next Rotarian Peace Project Incubator in 2022. Will be held in Basel during the Rotary Institute, Zone Institute, which is a wonderful opportunity for us to review all the projects, what has worked, what hasn't worked, which are the projects who don't have partners yet, present them to interested parties, but also to work on new projects to be presented, and to continue our promotion for peace at all levels and with all Rotary clubs, because still there are Rotary clubs who are not very familiar with that aspect of Rotary and think that because they live in a non-conflict zone, peace is not really of their concern. Next. So thank you very much. Walter will tell you more about it, and Natalia as well. It was a wonderful experience. And really my thanks to all those who have worked incredibly hard, also on the organization teams who have worked many, many hours. I think we spent about 1,500 hours just on the preparation, but probably we are even much further, much more above that. It's a good beginning, and we would like to continue. And we look forward to actually talking with you about what you plan.
Thank you, Sibylle. That's wonderful to hear a bit about how you went about your incubator project and what it looked like and what some of the initial outcomes were. That was wonderful. If we could hand over now to Natalia, we'd love to hear about how you drew on different sources of knowledge and experience and what you learned through that process and where you're heading.
Thank you very much, and greetings from Warsaw, Poland, where I'm based at the moment, and I'm very honored to join you today at this important event, and my congratulations for the initiative. Today I will be sharing my perspective as a Rotary Peace Fellow who has been involved in setting up and developing the European chapter of the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association since 2019, together with my colleagues, other Peace Fellows from the region, from Europe who couldn't join us today, and I will be talking on their behalf too. And with support of Bill Rins, Rotary Alumni Relations Specialist, and Walter Gager and Sibylle Rupert, as well as the board of our fellows from Europe went through the process of a Peace Projects Incubator, where in a highly collaborative way with Rotarians and experts we develop project proposals in the area of peace building and conflict prevention. And most of us had unique knowledge about peace, but little knowledge about global grants process. And before the Peace Projects Incubator, where we had training and an opportunity to have this first-hand experience. And groups were created during Peace Projects Incubator of various interests and in different areas can still be connected and exchange expertise. And our European team includes Peace Fellows, but also work closely with Rotarians and Rotary Global Grant Scholars to explore how we can make this cooperation more efficient so it can increase the number of peace projects. As we are all of diverse backgrounds with various levels of knowledge from different fields and with diverse expertise and international experiences, representing different networks and possessing contacts at local, regional, and international levels. And there is a kind of intersectionality of different types of knowledge and expertise. And this kind of cooperation can be beneficial and can have a positive impact on project development and implementation and lead to better sustainability of peace projects. And through our activities at the Alumni Association in Europe and in general as Peace Fellows, we try to position ourselves as important partners for cooperation with unique knowledge in different fields, including economics, ecology, culture, art, health, genocide studies, in addition to our training in peace and development at Rotary Peace Centers. And it seems to be a long-term and challenging process, and we, through our Alumni Association, can raise awareness about us as Peace Fellows and our expertise. And as I already said, that our European team is mixed, and we work together and closely with Rotarians and also Rotaractors and Global Grant Scholars, and explore different ways how we can deepen this cooperation and bring more impact. And as we discussed in our association, through this experience, we can show that we can contribute to all aspects of peace projects, from ideas to needs assessments to proposal development and implementation. And of course, there were examples of an excellent cooperation of Peace Fellows and Rotarians, but by our work at the European level, at the European chapter of the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association, we brought it to a different level, to a broader audience, and we hope show the direction also to other Peace Fellows and Rotarians to understand the real meaning of our Peace Fellowship. For example, I and a few of my colleagues from Alumni Association in Europe, we are coming from Central Eastern Europe, where there are very few peace initiatives and less cooperation between Peace Fellows and Rotary clubs, and where there are also fewer Peace Fellows. But there are many challenges around peace and conflict, for example, in Ukraine, in Belarus, in Russia, in the South Caucasus, and in Central Europe, with growing extremism or challenges caused by the pandemic. And our participation in the Peace Project Incubator help us to activate our knowledge and expertise also at the regional level and country level. So there are some inspiring and important initiatives which are being developed by Peace Fellows and Rotarians, for example, in Ukraine or South Caucasus or Poland, with and through the presence of the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association, including our European chapter. And all of us have our own peace projects or project ideas, and we will continue this dialogue, hope to continue this dialogue with Rotarians and look for different ways to get them more interested in our activities by presenting the best also practices from our experience. And last but not least, as we also discussed at our last meeting of European Peace Fellows and Rotarians, the role of Rotary Peace Centers is crucial too. And we can explore, for example, how we can integrate this training and this specific knowledge about peace projects with this component of cooperation of Peace Fellows and Rotarian, so it will be accessible already during fellowship, during the studies. So, and we hope to continue our work, our facilitation of this dialogue, and hope to engage also other Peace Fellows from other regions. So thank you. This is
Thank you, Natalia, for that comprehensive overview. It's really wonderful to hear about this as a really practical example for how Rotary can better harness and integrate the knowledge created through the Peace Program and the various initiatives to create change. I remember at the Peace Symposium a couple of years ago in Hamburg that one of the Peace Fellows said, there's no company in the world that would spend so much money and so much effort training their workforce and then fire them the next day. And he was saying, you know, this is where we can build in those progressions, those really tangible, practical ways that actually Rotary can really harness that knowledge that they're helping to create. So that it's wonderful to hear your experience and about your leadership in that space, Natalia. Thank you. Now I'd like to hand over to Walter. You've been very patient, thank you. And we're all very excited to hear from you. We'd really like to hear your perspectives about the challenges and the gaps between intentions and realities that you see in Rotary's peace efforts, and what we can learn from the European experience to help shift us from rhetoric to action in that space. So thank you. Handing over to you, Walter.
Well, thank you very much. And I would like to send you my greetings at the moment from Dubrovnik. I'm just back from a mission to Bosnia-Herzegovina to discuss with Rotarians about the implementation of our Harmony project, which is entitled From Inner to Outer Peace. I would like to refer to what Morgan has said right at the beginning. We have to get involved the local communities. This is really the crux. And I would also like to refer what Jessica just said now. Rotarians are people of actions and not of words. Paul Harris said this at a certain moment in time. Now, the origin of everything what you have been hearing until now from Sibyl and Natalia, and I'm very grateful for their help and support, has started in 2017 at a conference like the one you are now united here online. The first UN Day, Rotary Day at UN Geneva. And after this, the subject was peace. And afterwards, some peace fellows approached me and said, Walter, it's nice, all these conferences, but what are we doing on the ground? And well, I'm a retired diplomat, so I'm speaking out quite frankly. Some said, peace fellows said, after our training, we felt alone by Rotary. They were very generous with us, providing us knowledge. But how can we contribute that our knowledge is used by Rotarians? This was one thing, and we had quite intensive discussions for about 2 years, 3 years, what we could do until the idea of the incubator was born. And then mainly to the Hamburg conference you mentioned, Jessica, I was one of the co-organizers of it. We could bring in the Peace Fellows. And then we had really the support of Natalia and of the alumni structure, which was exactly created at that moment. Now, I was also contacted by another woman. She should now sit near me, but probably she is still sleeping. This is Sanela Music from Bosnia. And she said to me, Walter, can you help me in the implementation of a project in Bosnia? And this is exactly what we are doing. And I would like to speak just a few moments about this project, because this project shows what can be done, but also what are the difficulties we have to face. The origin of the project were some young people who contacted Sanela and me when we were in Sarajevo, and they said, well, we are not shooting at each other anymore. Tanya mentioned that she couldn't understand. Young people cannot understand, even here where I am at the moment, why the shooting took place. But the wounds are still very present. How can we address this? And Morgan, I think you made a very important point, what governments are doing. I'm a career diplomat. I was for 40 years in the Foreign Service. I know what governments can do, and I know what governments cannot do. And there Rotary comes in, Rotary clubs come in. But peace projects need knowledge. This knowledge our peace fellows have. And we need to use the knowledge of our peace fellows and of specialists. This is exactly what we are doing with the Harmony Project in Bosnia. We try now to empower members of the very diversified Bosnian society in working on positive peace. Train the Trainer seminar should take place end June, early July, and then the follow-up should be organized by local Rotary clubs. And this is exactly, it's not so easy to do. It's not so easy to tell Rotarians who have their daily Rotary life, look, you can do something for positive peace within your community. Well, we will meet, e-meet next week. I hope many of the clubs in Bosnia-Herzegovina, explains them the project. And you know, all this could, and this is, I would like to end with this, all this could fundamentally change, in my view, also Rotary. Rotary is now a structure which has over 100 years. We have our own traditions. In my view, we should go back to our roots. We should go back to our roots and serve the community. This is what we are. This is the purpose of our movement. And this can be done if we succeed in linking the society, identifying their urgent needs, bringing in our motivation to do something, to serve the society, society, and combine all this with experience and knowledge. And in the peace area, we have this knowledge thanks to our Peace Fellows. So I was very excited listening to Morgan, listening to all of you. What is happening at the moment can really revigorate the Rotary movement and bring us back to the roots. And this is what I wish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. It's a very inspiring, insightful place for us to finish the presentations around the European Rotary Peace Project Incubator. We are running slightly over time, but I think you'll all agree with me that it was completely worth it. I would just like to take a couple of minutes now to quickly take you through a couple of the opportunities locally. We've hinted at the local incubator, but to take you through that and ways that people might be able to get involved with that, and then I'll hand over to Tanya. So the two things for our listeners, our watchers, our viewers out there that you can get involved with locally are a Rotary Peace Project Incubator that we are hoping to implement in November of this year. We propose that this will engage very strongly with the Rotary Peace Fellow Alumni Association in Oceania, the Rotary Peace Centre at University of Queensland, of course, and University of Melbourne's Initiative for Peace Building, and also, of course, Rotary clubs and districts and NGOs working in peace-related fields and others in this sector. We've also asked our European friends to mentor us through this process and to help us to learn from their experience, and to increase collaboration and make sure that the two incubators don't operate in silos but can be mutually reinforcing and beneficial. We'll refine the model, including the themes, the foci, the scope, the ways to best integrate into existing opportunities. And we'll be putting together an event webpage soon through which you'll be able to register your interest. We'll send an email and also put it out through our social media and Rotary communication channels. So please keep an eye out for that. But that's an exciting thing that we've made a commitment to work towards here in Australia. The other thing is an annual State of Peace report, which we propose to present annually in November for Rotary Foundation Month. And what we want to do through that is to map what's happening in clubs, which areas of focus are more and less supported within the peace building and peace seeking fields, and what gaps and needs clubs are reporting. And then map that with opportunities that exist within the broader sector, the opportunities for clubs to partner and support those who are waging peace across the region, and also to assess what's needed to be able to enable those linkages. So see if there are small bridges that can be built to enable great things. And we want to quantify it to give Rotarians an idea of our contribution to peace collectively, to be able to document and mark progress, set targets and review priorities year on year. Such a big undertaking will provide plenty of opportunity to participate for those of you out there who are keen to get involved. So watch this space also for news of how you and your club can be involved. This is something that we're in the early stages of developing, but we're very keen and committed to this project, and we hope that we'll see a lot of support from all of you out there to make it a reality. So now I'm going to hand over to Tanya, who's going to take us through the final stage of the session. Thank you.
With just a couple of minutes, I'd like to acknowledge in our audience that we have a range of people from Rotary clubs in our Oceania region, as well as students and alumni. And I think that in thinking about what we can do for peace, I hope that there are those discussions that especially Walter challenges us to have about how we want to come back and place ourselves in our own context and rethink, reimagine and maybe revisit our understanding of how we want to work for peace. Jess has given some ideas of what we're thinking about, and this has been a conversation we've been having with Morgan. So we definitely want to be inclusive and forward-looking as we think about what we can do in terms of some of the structure to that. Natalia, Elaine, who's in the audience as well, in June there's the Global Peace Conference, and whilst we don't just want symposiums and gatherings, I would argue that this alumni network is on show for their skill and expertise at the Global Conference, because we are an incredible network that has been going for over a decade, over 1,400 specialised knowledge and practice carriers in a whole lot of different ways, and we look forward to making that more meaningful and most certainly professionalising our engagement. So we offer an invitation not just for talks and sharing what we've been doing, but what we can do with you, or what can be supported amongst the alumni network as well. And of course that's dynamic, because we move into different roles where we can also have people like Charlie Allen and others who are both Rotarians, alumni and organisational people. So just to end, Morgan, because we began with you, I'd like to end with you. We had a couple of questions that were in the audience that were more affirmations of some of the things that have been raised. But Morgan, if you would like to just in that last moment return to what you first were saying about where we might be heading, that'd be wonderful.
Yes, thanks very much, Tanya, and thanks for the questions and comments in the chat. I saw a question from Peter Keith there, which I believe has been answered by some of what Jess had to say. And can I just say that from my point of view, at the relatively early stages of this journey, it's fantastic to hear the experience of the Rotary Peace Project's incubator project, and we look forward to continuing to be in touch with European colleagues. If we had more time today, I would like to ask you what are the key pitfalls, the key problems that we need to look out for, but I'm sure we'll be continuing these conversations beyond today, so we can hold that over. And in concluding, can I also just link to what Walter was saying at the end? Of course, I want to acknowledge the fantastic work of Natalia and Sybil and all the other people who've contributed to the incubator project on the European scene. But to pick up Walter's point about Rotary returning to its roots and to these fellowship, service above self, connection and community and so on, I think it's very easy for all of us to get caught up in official processes and to look to elite level work that states and diplomats and others do. That is incredibly important work, and we need to continue to push and probe and encourage that work and be part of that work, but that needs to be balanced with drawing upon what are Rotary strengths And I think there's fantastic opportunities here for Rotarians all around the world to be making a major contribution to peace by building on the type of networks we're thinking about and working on here in these and related sessions that Jess is pointing to. So from my point of view, thanks very much to the organisers and everyone on the panel and everyone who's participated. That may be what you wanted me to say,
Yes,
Tanya.
absolutely,
I hope it is.
Morgan, and thank you so much. And it's the end of our session, and we extend our deep appreciation. Walter, Sybil and Natalia, it's the early hours of the morning. Walter, you even thought we were starting an hour earlier, so you've been so generous and patient. And Morgan, this is a really important movement for us, and we appreciate all the knowledge and experience that you've shared. And we welcome our audience and participants to join in a few moments the final panel discussion, which you can link into with the Zoom link that you have, which starts at 12:05. So thank you to our panel, and thanks, Jess, for organising this fantastic session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.